Trying to adapt my courses to an online format has been a bit of a exhausting struggle. I'm sure you're with me if you're a teacher, professor, and you're under the kind of the quarantine rules and the online shift, as it's called. But this is a bad way to think about it. I think a lot of the frustration and problems are coming from the fact that we're thinking about it as a shift. It means a lateral move, that we're trying to take what's designed for the classroom and put it in this place that it couldn't be more unlike the classroom. While we're teaching under quarantine or social distancing, there are some principles that I've used in online course design that helped me, and I thought I'd make a short video in order to help you kind of think about what it is that you're supposed to do to adapt a class for online. Now, the word adapt is a very important word for me. It's a very special word for me because I'm a rhetorician, and rhetoricians are all about adaptation. But I don't know if adaptation is the right word to use in this context because of how people are going to take it. You're going to think that you've got to do all the same things you've done in your class or the students aren't going to learn. So you've got to figure out how to squeeze all of those things you do in an in-person class for 90 minutes, a couple of times a week, into some kind of weird online system where we're not even sure if the connection is going to work when we do talk to students live. Adaptation is not the right word. I think the word is reboot. I did pick it because it's computer. Yes, I'm cheesy. I do like that. You got me. When the computer's not working right and when programs aren't opening and when you're not able to do the work you do, you turn it off and turn it back on, and then you reopen those apps that you want to do your work on. And I think that's the approach we got to take to online learning right now. It's not even really online learning. It's more like triage, really. So we're going to do what works, even though it might not be the healthiest or the best or the advised way to treat something. We're in triage. And this is the tool we've been given to treat our students well. So how do we treat our students well and ethically and properly when we are rebooting our courses with only 5 or 6 weeks left in them in the first place? Principle number 1, and these are principles, not rules. I don't want you to think that there are these rules for online teaching. That might not be the best way to think about it. Principle number 1, if it doesn't work on a phone, don't do it. Now, most of students have access to a computer, right? They might not have their own laptop, but we all see them on their phones all the time, right? In their class, they try to hide it from you. You see them in the hallway. They're all talking to each other, looking at their phones. Weird, right? But this is their culture, and this is the way they search for information, look for information, and figure things out. This is how they negotiate their social lives, their personal lives, their work lives, their research and schooling lives. They're all done on a phone. A phone is going to be 90% of your students' way they access the internet, maybe even more. It's comfortable and familiar and makes it a great candidate for online learning. Now, yes, they do have access to a computer, probably most of them, but let's think about how the computer is arranged with their life right now. They were used to independence. They were in a dorm. Maybe they use the computer lab. Maybe they have their own computer. But a home computer for our students is going to be in the family room with the television, with the parents, with younger brothers and sisters, with animals. It's going to be a nightmare, and it might not be the best place to study. A lot of our students like to study alone in private, doors shut, with their phone, with the headphones in, listening to music. They need a space where they can get into that learning mode that they have trained themselves works for them. And now's not the time to critique that study and learning mode. Now's the time to present material that fits for that study and learning mode. And adapting for a phone doesn't hurt any of your students who prefer a computer or prefer a laptop or something like that. It's not going to hurt them. They'll still be able to get the content. It's just, if you design it for the computer, it's not going to look great on the phone. Vice versa, it's going to be fine. It's going to be great. Lots of learning management software has the ability to present something over a phone, like Blackboard Ultra, which we use here at my institution. Looks pretty good on a phone and works pretty well on a phone. You can design content on your browser of your choice, and it looks pretty well. But there's also another consideration for why the phone might be the best rule for course design. A lot of times we get caught up like kids in a candy store with this technology. I mean, look at me. I've got all this great tech for producing web videos and for teaching online. But sometimes it gets to be a bit much. Nobody needs a 4K video with a separate audio track at really high bit rate like I'm producing here. But I put it on YouTube because YouTube will automatically scale to someone's internet connection and still be usable. The content you're producing might not be usable, might not be accessible based on the type of internet connection the students have. So some students live in very rural areas. Some people live in areas where internet service is very expensive and they don't have it. Some are relying on businesses that are about to close for their internet, like Starbucks, McDonald's, places like that have free internet. So that internet is also not good. So try to produce things that a phone can handle. Means you're automatically reducing the bandwidth demand or the price of entry to your course. When I say price of entry, I mean those things that we don't think about, privilege, the things about having a good internet connection, a good screen, good audio, all of that stuff. You should absolutely try to produce the best material you can that cuts through the technological wonderment of it all and makes something that's easy to listen to and easy to watch for them. But you don't want to make a demand of something where they have to be online for a long period of time in order to watch or see that content. I'm going to talk about this in a little bit too, but think about audio files as sort of the gold standard for online education. If you want to lecture to them, give your hour and a half lecture without any interruption, without any question and answer. It's probably going to be about a 20-minute thing or maybe even a 10-minute thing if you distill it down into smaller lectures that can be broken up. Once they go to their internet place, they can download those audio files onto their phone and study and learn with you at home where they might not have good internet in a position where they can get the maximum benefit from your lecture and your instruction. The phone principle is a good one for online course design as we reboot. Number 2, reframing the course. Everything you're doing might be an accident of history. In fact, the classroom wasn't designed the way it is today, the way we experience it, and the course schedule of semester wasn't designed because that's the best way to learn. It was the best way to learn given the economic, social, and material circumstances of people's lives. This is so important because what we are familiar with and comfortable with is not the best kind of learning. It's the best kind of learning given a circumstance. Summer holiday only happens in the United States because that's harvest season, and students need to go back and help with the farm. We had a very agrarian country, and public education isn't going to work, and education is not going to work unless you give people time to do sustenance farming. That's still a holdover from those days, even though most of our students are not sustenance farmers. So the accidental relationship of it, the way that all the desks face the same way, is because of the invention of the blackboard or the chalkboard. Didn't used to be the case when it was slates, and students are writing on their own personal kind of chalkboards, and the teacher's going around looking at it. Cheap paper and cheap ink has changed the way things are done in terms of grading and collecting assignments and the frequency of that. Writing a paper, very easy now with electronic devices like computers and things, not so easy not too long ago. So keep that in mind. Everything you think is good education might just be really comfortable education based on an environment, a physical environment that's a product of accidental economic and material circumstances. So what does that mean for reframing the course? What's the question you're investigating together? And what are the practices that best help you investigate that question? Thinking about that will help you design things that are only connected to that. So it might be that you give a short lecture in audio form on the question of the class and have students respond with their reaction to the question. Or you can have them respond with an audio file or type an email to you of a paper based on one of the aspects of one of the things they need to study and need to be familiar with in order to address that question. And then at the end of the term, of course, you can assess those practices. What are those things you hope they're able to do or say or speak that an educated person who's taken your class, someone who's studied that subject, would be able to do? In my case, it's easy. It's a well-constructed speech that takes into account audience variety, that takes into account the audience as human beings, and tries to make something with them that's communicative and powerful. But the question is, what's a good speech? And the practices are audience evaluation, research, drafting, tone and delivery, all those things. So reframing means get down to the basics. Reboot your class. All the things you did in the classroom, are they necessary or are they accidental? Are they things that are actual good learning, or they are things that work best given the accidental circumstances of the physical classroom and the 15-week semester and all these things that have nothing to do with being educated well, but everything to do with economic realities and material realities? The final point is simple is best. Don't get overwhelmed by all the tech. There's so much cool tech out there. I'm the worst offender of this. I love it all, and I try to do so many cool high-tech things, but sometimes just an email, typed up email or an emailed PowerPoint of your lecture for that day is perfect to get your ideas across to a student. It's perfect. Think about access and think about focus and think about giving them space to process and internalize and do deep learning on the material that you're presenting, and you'll go much, much, much further than spending hours trying to learn some crazy piece of software that your university bought for you that they suggest you use. Sometimes just emailing the whole class is the best way to get information across and to get them to think about important questions. Sometimes having them email you a summary of what they read or questions they had about reading as an assignment is the best way to do it. And also simple allows for more frequent check-ins because you don't feel like it's such an obligation to turn on the webcam and make sure that's working, make sure the computer is not going to reboot with updates and all of that nonsense that comes with technological dependency. Sometimes a text message is good too. There are lots of software out there where you can get a different phone number from your actual phone number so the students don't have it. And they can text you anytime they want. And a text message might be a good way to do that too. So typing, posting on a message board in your LMS, a fantastic way, not incredibly sexy with the educational technology, but effective. And that's what we want is students to, they're already stressed enough. They're worried about the world. They're worried about what this means for everybody. This kind of discounts that stress a bit is to do the simple. Audio is incredibly important here. We all have a phone. Here's mine. Very nice phone. But even if you don't have such a good phone, even if you have an out-of-date phone or, out of date, what does that mean? If you have an older phone, it's got one thing in it that's a great piece of technology, a really good microphone. And if you plug in your headphones with the mic that you use for your hands-free, maybe when you're driving, that microphone is great too. Just recording on voice memos, your thoughts or things like that when you have them, and then piecing them together in a free piece of software like Audacity or any kind of sound editor on your computer and emailing that out to the students is wonderful. It's wonderful because you might really hit a teachable moment. Audio is downloadable. It doesn't take a lot of bandwidth to download it if you're at a Starbucks or something where the bandwidth is restricted. The speed of the internet and the size of the files are restricted. You can't really watch Netflix there or anything like that. But you can download a very simple audio file from a voice memo. And that can be excellent teaching that doesn't take a lot of time or investment. The technology doesn't get in the way. And you can get back on track with getting the students to focus on your class and the things that you think are important for them to learn. So those are the 3 principles. I'd love to have discussion in the comments here on this video. Let me know, and also look around the site, see if there's other videos that you might want to watch that might help you with teaching. Instead of thinking this as a problem or some kind of a nightmare scenario, let's try to think about it collectively as a time to kind of reassess our practices and figure out what does it really mean to be a good teacher? And what does it mean to teach something well? And let's strip away all those things that come with the classroom that might not be necessary, that we just do because they're comfortable or they work. And let's really interrogate and think about what makes a good class. What are those basic things that make a good class? And then I think you'll be well on your way to providing a pretty good close to the semester in pretty disastrous times.